All right, good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, May 15th, 2025. We are picking up more work after an introduction and a walkthrough on H508, an act relating to the approval of amendments to the charter of the city of Burlington. And we have some representatives from the city to join us and talk in a little bit more detail about the proposals in 508. How are you? Good morning.
Good morning.
So, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm just arranging my notes on my screens here so that I can look at my notes and also still look at you. But please lead the way. Let me know when you're ready to hear from us.
All right. Well, we'll do a quick introduction around the table, allow you guys to introduce yourselves, and then we'll kick things off. Representative Matt Byrong, I represent Northwest Addison County and chair of the committee.
Representative Lisa Hango, Franklin 5.
Sandy Pincinel, Bennington Rutland 1.
Michael Morgan, Grand Isle Chittenden, which is all Grand Isle County and western corner of Milton.
Dale Coffin, Windsor 2, which is Cavendish, Weathersfield, and Baltimore.
Mary Catherine Stone, Burlington.
Kate Nugent, South Burlington.
Good morning. I'm Shay Waters Evans from Charlotte and Heinsberg.
And so, there's two separate sort of conversations within this charter request. So, I guess we could just kind of take it from the top with it looks like the boundaries of the first portion of the bill. Yes. I guess sort of if you want to please just sort of lay out from your perspective and the city's perspective on what the request mechanisms were a root cause of and how you see it sort of playing out from your perspective at the municipal level.
Great. Thank you so much. For the record, good morning, first of all. It's nice to meet all of you. For the record, my name is Jessica Brown. I'm the Burlington City Attorney, and joining me this morning is Assistant City Attorney Eric Ramakrishnan.
Morning.
Thank you to the chair and vice chair and all of the members who were there this morning for hearing from us about these two proposed changes to Burlington's charter. I am prepared to start with a brief statement about why these were ballot priorities for the city. But really, Eric and I are here to try and answer any questions that you may have. Just to give you a quick overview of the numbers, on town meeting day in Burlington this year, there were 9,823 ballots cast, 6,351 in favor of the redistricting charter change proposal. So that was almost 69%. And with regard to rental notification, 6,115 yes votes, so just over 65%. I will start with speaking to the proposed charter change with regard to redistricting. Our charter currently provides detailed legal descriptions of the boundaries of each of the city's 8 wards and 4 city council districts. Periodically, changes to those boundaries are required to provide equal population division in accordance with data produced by the U.S. Census Bureau. Based on our research of other Vermont cities' charters, usually these boundary changes are done by ordinance or council seats are at large. So we are, as far as we're aware, the only city in the state whose district boundaries require a charter change with all of the attendant procedures, including approval by the General Assembly. So this charter change will allow the city council the flexibility to propose those boundary changes, which would only be allowed no more frequently than once every 5 years. And any proposed boundary changes will still have to be approved by Burlington voters, but will no longer be required to be taken up by the General Assembly. So sort of want to just align with what is the more typical practice among cities in Vermont, and give that flexibility to our city council, but still obviously have the approval of voters to make those boundary changes. Chair, I will defer to you. Would you like me to speak to the second part of the bill, or would you like to discuss this redistricting first, and then move on to rental notification?
Let's stick with the boundaries for a moment while we're just on topic. So I know that Burlington's looking at a lot of different development projects right now and different housing growth initiatives in various parts of town. So with that, I mean, there's obviously going to be shifts in population density with that growth. How would that interplay with this mechanism, right? Does this give you more nimbleness to sort of evaluate?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, that's, as I see it, exactly the point, right? That particularly as we develop very much needed new housing, that will change the populations within the boundaries as they currently exist, and therefore the boundaries may need to be changed.
Okay.
And to your point, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but to your point, making this charter change will then allow the city council the nimbleness and flexibility to be able to make those boundary changes as populations change, without having to go through the full charter change procedure as we do now.
What are the areas of town right now where you anticipate the most development impacting the population shifts within the current? Do you have any idea?
I'll ask Eric to chime in if he has any idea, but I mean, I can certainly identify that. Oh my gosh, Eric, I'm blanking on the name of it, but we have a huge new building about to open up right in our downtown core area, which is Ward 3, right? Am I getting that right, Eric? So
it's close to the boundary between Ward 2 and 3. I'm not sure exactly where it falls, but it's the City Place project.
Yes.
In addition to, we have some South End development that's being discussed. We have a pre-development agreement for the old Memorial Block, just a little bit to the east of City Hall. And we have units coming online every day at Cambrian Rise.
Cambrian Rise, is that like on North Ave?
Yeah, it's on North Ave. It's just kind of outside of what I would call the downtown core, but a little bit north. It's between the old North End and the new North End, effectively.
Okay. Is that the project where the old orphanage was?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, okay. And is there still something going on at the old Trinity campus?
I'm not familiar with that, but I don't generally work with the development side of things. So
okay.
I also don't know the answer to that, but we can certainly find out that information.
Yeah.
If
If I may, I think the reason why our original 1940, well, it's not our original charter, but our 1949 charter has these boundaries in it, is because at the time there was no U.S. Supreme Court case law on the idea that boundaries should adjust following censuses to make sure that to protect the principle of one person, one vote. So they weren't expected to change. I believe they were intended to be permanent. And now we have a constitutional obligation to make sure that people are fairly represented. And it's not just the fact that to change the charter, we have to go to the General Assembly. It's also a lot harder to put, as you know, there are extra steps to put a charter change on the ballot and different timelines than just putting another type of town meeting day vote on the ballot. And so we're just trying to be, especially with this development coming online and this becoming kind of more of an issue than it has been in the past, as we try to stabilize the housing market here in Burlington. We're just trying to be nimble enough so that we can protect that right of our voters to be fairly represented, in line with, as Jessica indicated, the way it is elsewhere in the state.
I'm just like going through the language again for like the 14th time right now, just to try and digest it. Because it's a lot of language to strike. Any questions for this piece from the table right now?
I think mine goes back to what we talked about weeks ago was when it comes to the redistricting.
You asking me or you asking
Yeah,
me?
so my question is when it comes to the redistricting, you've got it, you want it in your charter, that it's every 5 years. But I'm concerned when it comes up for redistricting statewide, would they not be part of that process because it's not within their 5-year timeframe? Or would it, the statewide redistricting override the charter?
My understanding is this would be the governing document for the structure for redistricting outside of what we do here at the state level. Because the redistricting we do is just like Senate districts and House districts. We don't do municipal boards or anything like that. Yeah,
So this is just for municipal board,
correct.
for their own local voting, not Senate vote.
No. Like, for example,
Exactly.
like with like Rep Stone and Rep Hooper, it would not impact their legislative districts.
Like my district was drawn in the 2020 biennium, but the words didn't change at all.
Okay,
They just threw in a new rep. And that's
Gotcha.
me.
Good.
And to a former one district seat, but have no impact on the city council races in the
Okay.
area that I live in.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a totally separate conversation of redistricting. and reapportionment.
Yeah.
Was about the question I was gonna ask, what it does to the state.
yeah.
Okay.
No impact.
Rep Waters.
I mean, this is like the third or fourth time it's come up that we have the sole discretion to choose the qualifications of our own members. So the charter would not change that at all. Just bringing it back to Bennington.
A poll from O'Brien.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so this is nothing to do, like this committee or Senate Comops, when they do maps and reapportionment every 10 years, this is not part of that project. Yes, this is autonomous. So, and this might have been spoken to, but if you could refresh my memory, when was the last time the wards were redrawn?
Eric, do you know the answer to that question?
It says in the legislation.
Oh, it does.
So
That
let
would
me-
probably be the,
memory. 2023. So the election area boundaries established pursuant to 2023 acts and resolves number M7 would remain until changed.
what is that, page 11? Yeah,
Yes.
line 10.
Let me double check. Yes.
Yeah, no, it's right in front of me. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Does this give you the ability to add wards?
I don't think so. I don't believe that was the intent, but rather just to shift the boundaries of the wards.
Yeah. All right, any questions on this before we go to the conversation around the tenant landlord? No.
No, see.
All right, yeah, let's talk about that other section then.
Sure. Well, similarly, the intention of our proposed change to our charter language regarding rental notification requirements is an attempt to allow the city council to determine appropriate rental notification periods for Burlington landlords and tenants through a democratic process that engages all stakeholders. Currently, our charter has specific language requiring landlords to provide between 90 and 120 days notice to terminate residential leases depending on the duration of the tenancy. This is more notice right now than is required by state law. The proposed amendments will eliminate the specific notification periods and will allow the city council the discretion to establish by ordinance rental notification and tenancy termination requirements for both landlords and tenants, meaning that the city council could decide to allow for less or more time than the specific time periods that are currently required by our charter. But really most important, I think, is that this charter change would allow for that determination to be made democratically by a majority of the Burlington City Council, with the opportunity to receive feedback from all of the relevant stakeholders. Eric, do you have any specifics that you want to add, or I'm sorry, please.
Yeah, my question was with the feedback, would that just be through like sort of like the council's process as a body,
yeah.
public forums, public comment, things of that nature? Okay.
Exactly.
We have an extensive ordinance adoption process, so there's plenty of opportunity for feedback.
Can you explain why this is necessary?
Eric, do you want to get started on that one?
Yeah, I think the goal is to just be more nimble. Burlington has we're the largest city in the state. I think we're twice the size of South Burlington, which I believe is the second largest. And so we have the largest rental market in the state, and our needs change. So during the pandemic, a lot of people moved into Vermont as people were able to be remote workers. And that affected our rental housing market. But at the same time, we're trying to stabilize our rental housing market now by bringing more housing online. And so our needs for what we need to do to protect tenants are going to change, and we want to be responsive to that.
Please, yeah.
I'm not trying to be a pain in the neck here. I'm just wondering, like, what problem is this solving? Is that a better way to ask it?
There have been conversations, a variety of conversations internally about a desire to change notification periods and requirements. And because the charter is very specific as to how much notice has to be given under what circumstances, it was meant to be an expansion of the city's discretion, but it actually serves as a limitation. And so we're just looking for flexibility again to respond to changes in the housing market.
Thank you.
Rep. Nugent.
Thank you. Could you elaborate a little bit more as to why it should be the Burlington City Council, why that's the right place for that decision? Because you talked about the democratic process, but it was established by statute at the state level through another type of democratic process. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
I think because our city council we feel in the best position to understand the needs of our housing market. And so that seems to be the appropriate level in the minds of our city council and our voters for those decisions to be made.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about the different resources that are available at different levels and the legal requirements and statute at the state level that can assist the rest of the state with these types of procedures. And so I guess concerned or wondering about when you put that in just one municipality, will it still be connected and informed by everything that we have access to and inform those rules by this city level?
I apologize. I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. Could you maybe restate it a different way?
And I was wondering if you could give an example of what you mean in terms of like the resources that you're talking about.
When we, work on laws here, we have a lot of advice and availability from legal counsel that sees the whole state's laws in context. And so I guess I'm wondering, maybe worried about the potential for a law to be passed at the city level that doesn't have the benefit of that context that we have.
I guess go ahead, Eric, if you have a more coherent thought than what I'm coming
Yeah.
up with.
I guess I'd just say that, I feel like we're a large enough city with a large enough city attorney's office and with enough local service providers that we feel we have that expertise. We're connected to a lot of organizations that work in the housing arena, like Champlain Housing is the first example that comes to mind.
Was there a second part of your question too?
I think, yeah.
Okay. I got Rep. Hisnall, and then it looks like I got Rep. Coffin.
I guess, coming from a landlord's perspective, I'm not sure why the city council would want to get involved in a landlord tenant issue when it comes to terminating a lease. Or in this case, no lease, but just asking the tenant to leave for whatever reason. And that becomes a city problem. Just, I can't grasp that as to why that would be an issue that they want to get involved in. Yes.
I mean, we already have, again, this is a proposed change to our charter, which already has set requirements for notification of termination of a lease or, other changes to a lease. So to that extent, we already are, involved in landlord tenant matters. And this change would simply give the city council the flexibility to, and I would argue, with feedback from not just tenants, but also landlords, to determine what the appropriate notification periods are for landlords and tenants in Burlington. So I guess I don't see this as creating a new level of involvement for city council in landlord tenant matters, because they already are, and the city council already is, has been involved in setting the notification periods that we already have. Eric, do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, and I'll apologize if I'm repeating something you said, Jessica. My internet connection was a little bit unstable there for a moment, but yes, exactly. We already have notification provisions in the charter. This is just amending that. We already have a minimum housing code. We already have a housing board of review, which is allowed by state law. So this is not a new area for the city to venture into.
Yeah, I got VO, I got Rep. Hango, and then Stone.
Okay,
So I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But
in determining the timeframes, you said it could be shortened, it could be lengthened. Now, and again, the democratic process, hearing from a lot of people. But because you've already said that Burlington has a higher majority of rental properties. So that would mean that the majority of people that could potentially want that time frame lengthened would be renters, which would then negate what the homeowners, the ones that are actually the landlords would want, could be asking for a potential. If you put it to a vote, odds are the majority of the people that are voting would be renters. And that would disenfranchise the landlords who own these properties if you extended it, correct?
If I
Am I
could
seeing that correct?
apologize, if I could clarify, I don't think that I indicated that the majority of folks are renters in Berlin. And I actually, that's an interesting question. I'm sorry, I don't have that figure. What's the proportion of homeowners versus renters? I just meant to indicate that as the biggest city in the state by far, we have the largest number of renters in the state of any jurisdiction. So I don't know that ratio of property owners to tenants, but certainly I suspect that people who are landlords do carry a certain amount of political capital, and I would expect them to be represented in the process adequately.
I, for one, would like to get that information. How many landlords are we talking about? How many renters are we talking about? Because if we're going through a democratic process, everybody should be fairly represented, the same as readjusting the wards to make sure everybody has fair representation.
Do you have a follow-up?
Nope, that was.
I just wanted to point out for Rep. Nugent, this might help, that on page 12 of the charter at the top, subsection 48, it goes on to say that notwithstanding this statute or any other law to adopt by ordinance requirements, and it also refers to that another statute and not withstanding. So I think that when the charter change is enacted, the city council will have to take into consideration the other laws that have already been passed throughout this for statewide laws. So that might help answer the question.
My question is, why is the note, we'll have two. Why is the notice not working now? And the second question is, some feedback maybe why not propose this as a statewide change? I recognize that we're the biggest city and the makeup of the constituents who live there, as far as a bigger renter population, but why not push for this to be a statewide change versus doing it through a city charter? So two questions, and the first is, why is the notice not working now?
Eric, can you take these? Yeah.
Sure. As I indicated, I wouldn't, first of all, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is or isn't working now. It's just that there have been discussions, a variety of discussions over time about different proposals that might meet the needs of the time. And we just haven't been able to pursue those because the current charter is very specific about how we can differ from state law. In terms of why not deal with this at a statewide level, our goal is to have flexibility for ourselves over time. And so that's what we're looking for, is sort of local control over this. And so I think that's there are two different things as I see it. We don't have a specific statewide proposal. We know the needs of our local community.
So I think the question I have right now is, when this language was developed, was it done just internally with council folks and municipal staff like yourselves, or did you consult or work with tenant organizations, landlord association, property owners, or
The language was developed by the, and Jessica helped me out, CDNR, I forget the full, what that acronym stands for. It's one of our council committees. And honestly, I apologize. I don't know everybody who would have testified or presented to that committee, but it was a public process before it even came to council. It also was reviewed by the Charter Change Committee as well as the whole council.
Is there like a list of folks that they might have taken testimony or input from that you could provide us?
Well, yeah, I mean, the minutes would have indicated who spoke at the meeting, so we can find those and provide those to you.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Yeah, I'd be interested in any of the landlord associations or tenant groups, things of that nature.
The committee that Eric was referencing is the Community Development and Neighborhood Revitalization Committee, which is one of our standing city council committees, and we can certainly find minutes and information from any meetings at which this charter change proposal was discussed by the CDNR and any witnesses.
Maybe if you could just share with us who was like the chair of that subcommittee, we could start there.
Well, the current chair is Councillor Evan Litwin, but I don't, I'll have to double check and see who was the chair
It was
when this was taken up.
Carter Newbeezer.
Oh, okay, great. It was Carter Newbeezer, who is still a city councillor, but just no longer the chair of CDNR.
Gotcha. Any other questions for these folks when we have them? I think my curiosities have run dry for the moment. Anyone else?
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We're gonna keep looking into this. And we'll reach out to Councillor Newbeezer and a couple of other organizations and do some more testimony on this next week.
Great. Thank you for your.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Oof. No, just like coffee's not kicking in. All right, well, we got a little bit of time till our next order of business, but we did shuffle things a little bit. We flip-flopped S59 and S53 today. I met with Attorney Fitzpatrick, Attorney Anderson, and Chair Lalonde yesterday. They're taking a look at that language that we were putting into the open meeting law bill, that one sentence that Tucker pulled from that Colby decision. And so Chair Lalonde and company are taking a look at that this morning. So we'll have a firm understanding of where they're at, but Chair Lalonde did not raise any major red flags for me when we met yesterday afternoon. So we'll take a look at that at 11:30. We flip-flopped synthetic media and kind of a status update on some of those like lawsuits that were floating around. It seems to be a percolating concern with members of the committee table. So that was the focus of the conversation that I wanted to have with Attorney Sagel at 10:30. Any questions?